Welcome to our weekly podcast, Real Talk with Chris and Ross. We are designed for entrepreneurs and forward thinkers. We also care very heavily around the real estate industry as a whole, bringing you hot topics and up-to-date content with a lot of amazing special guest speakers along the way. So sit back, buckle your seatbelt, and get ready for the best hour of your day. Hello, everybody out there. Welcome to Real Talk with Chris and Ross. We are now episode 42. We are climbing the charts. I feel like we're Casey Kasem's top 40. For those of you who are too young to even know what that is, shame on you. But that used to be my favorite Sunday pastime, the Casey Kasem top 40s. Anyways, that was a throwback. Anywho, welcome to the show. We're excited to have you back every week. We bring some amazing content and amazing guest speakers. And always with me, my greatest co-hostess with the mostest, Ross Rawson III.
What's happening, baby? How's my boy out in Hawaii, man?
He's all the way from Michigan. You know what I'd say? I'd like to replace myself with you, but I'd be lying. I don't want to be in Michigan right now. I want to be in Hawaii.
Ashley, he's such a hater on the cold. We need to get him a little, ski outfit and get him down the hills. I swear. Hey,
I'm not mad about the skiing. I'm definitely going to transport myself back to California here come wintertime, hit some Tahoe.
Okay.
Close to that. But I'm going to be quickly coming back to get in my beach where it's 80 degrees. So
can't be mad at that, man.
So we're super excited again. Hope everyone here to get amazing value and content each and every week. And this week we have an amazing guest speaker with us, Ashley GOLLADAY. Welcome, Ashley, to the show.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yes, we're excited to have you. This is the lady who has it all: the looks, the brain, and the wit. She's from Texas, so don't underestimate this lady. She will pull out a gun. I'm just kidding. She won't. But nonetheless.
Did I tell you? That's another story, but I almost got arrested at the airport with a gun. So, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
It's like Texas, every story in Texas has to be good. So we will leave that for another story. You want to hear about that at one point. But one of the things we love about Ashley, Ashley's part of EXP. I met her in Puerto Rico, wasn't it? I met you in Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
One of the events we had there for Brent Gove. And she is a brainiac economic numbers major kind of guru girl who knows how to financially put you in the right place for your business. And what better place than EXP? Yes, we are EXP. We're not afraid to say it.
Come on, somebody.
If you don't know, now you know. But yeah, so we had a great conversation a couple weeks back on here. For those who are listening again, we talked about different systems and structures and idiosyncrasies about brokerages and how they began and where they're at, maybe some of the pros and cons about each and every one. And at the end of the day, we always say the same thing, right? Whatever works for you. And we want you to do what's best for you. But this week with Ashley, we kind of want to come out here and share a little bit different aspect of it from a financial perspective, because a lot of people think, this brokerage is this brokerage is that. I can have this, I can have that. But really at the end of the day, when you run your business like a real business, and this is where people I don't think, right? I think Ashley probably agree with me that most realtors have no idea, no clue whatsoever on what it looks like to run a business like business. So
I'm going to soapbox this for a second. I can't tell you how many times a day, and it's not just real estate, but it's more prevalent in real estate, where you have salespeople who happen to have enough capital to start a brokerage or, build a business and a team, whatever it is, right? And yet they have no business running a business. It's my broken record. It's a major, major downfall to most real estate businesses because they just don't have the foundation of those business concepts, whether it's the financial pieces or, operations or whatever it is. It's the hardest part. And even just management, right? Basic managing humans is usually not great because you have salespeople, that's not their strong suit, trying to be business people. So.
Yep, agreed. Like I say, I love steaks, but I'm sure as hell not going to be a farmer because I can't.
Right?
I might be a farmer. I'm never going to be a farmer, but I sure as hell like to be a steak on that plate. So we'll call that what it is. So before we jump into this, real quick, let's set the stage. Ashley, do us a favor real quick. Kind of give us a brief overview of who you are and kind of your background a little bit before we jump into this great, heavy, convoluted conversation.
Yeah, so I have been in the industry literally since I was a child. My mom was an agent when I was a kid. So I've grown up in this industry. I remember back in the day when there was an MLS book and we had to drive around to all the brokerages to pick up the keys. So I'm not the millennial or, you know, the youngin, even though I might look it a little bit, but I did just turn 40. So I've literally been actively in my career for 20 years. I started in 2004. So I had just turned 21 actually. And so I started at Keller Williams. I spent 16 years there. I came in as the financial and operations manager, and I quickly realized I was not very good at being an employee. And so regrets were made. But I came in, my mom called and was like, hey, they're opening a new brokerage. You're really good at math. Like, you should go take this accounting test. Although I'd never actually taken an accounting class in my life. But my dad is the finance guy, and he knows numbers and logic and data and all that. And so I called my dad and I was like, what do I need to know? And he goes, you know, about personal, sorry, I'm getting a feedback or something. He goes, everything you need to know about your personal banking, just do the opposite. So you'll be fine. And I did. I passed that test with no actual accounting background. And then I spent 16 years at Keller Williams. But I only spent about 3 years in the actual role. And so I realized quickly I was not good at being a day-to-day employee, but I was really good at teaching other people how to do it well. So I consulted for the last 12 years or so that I was there, and I would go to brokerages all over the country, and I would come in and I would fill the gap. I would train the new person. I would fix and clean up everything that the last person left as a mess. And so what started out as just kind of being the finance expert really turned into the brokerage expert. And so when I would come in, they'd be like, well, what do you know about the vendor program? Or what have you seen other places do with onboarding, right? And the technology and all those. So I just became the problem solver and the fixer. And then at some point I realized along the way that this applied to any brokerage, right? This could apply to any real small to medium-sized business, because you have these large franchise names, but they don't really do all of the things behind the curtain. It's like, over here, we're going to make you toe the line. You have to do everything we tell you to do because we're the franchisor and you have to do what we say. But then over here, it's like, oh, we don't want to touch that with a 10-foot pole. So you're on your own. Figure it out. HR, right? Benefits or whatever it is. It's just like, oh, we can't help you. We don't want to get our hands dirty on that side. So I really just started applying all of that knowledge and skill to any brokerage with any brand, and then just really any small to medium-sized business. And so because that's what these franchises and most of these brokerages are, is a small to medium-sized. Yes, you have a huge amount of contract laborers. I think that's the hardest part for real estate, is you have this massive workforce, right? The sales force in the agents, but you don't have a large staff from an employment side. And so it's almost like teaching, right? I always equate it to how many seats in the room or how many seats in the classroom is that teacher really able to affect and learn, or students able to learn from one teacher? You get 30 people, that's manageable. You get 300 people per teacher, that's not manageable, right? That's not effective anymore. And that's the way that a lot of these brokerages operate, right? You've got 5 staff members for 300 agents. I can't wrap my arms around. There's no way that I'm always going to have a revolving retention issue, because that's not effective relationship. And I think that's the number one mistake that brokerages make, is they think that they're in the transactional business. I don't know, Chris, if I said this last time on the last meeting, but I say this a lot too, is brokerages are not in the transactional business. Yes, they have liability in the transactions, and it is their name on the contract. However, that is not their core business. Their core business is customer service, and agents are their customers. And so bringing more agents and keeping more agents should be the number one focus and goal. And yet transactions overshadows that a lot, because that's where the revenue comes from. And any business, if it's revenue, it's going to get the most attention, right? But those agents are the ones that are bringing the transactions. And so you have to find ways to, recognize, retain, and be in relationship with agents, because that's the hardest part. Is most businesses have a real arm or grasp around retention, right? And they're able to know what their churn rates are and things like that. And there's a lot more loyalty in a lot of ways. With brokerages, they're independent contractors. They can, at the drop of a dime, I have seen agents leave a brokerage for the dumbest reasons, right? And then I see them stay for the dumbest reasons. Like, sorry, not sorry, but it's baffling to me sometimes. We're like, oh, but they donated to my son, my kid's sickness thing 15 years ago, and seriously, like, is that the best business decision for you now? Or I don't know. That's just not who I am. And so it's baffling to me sometimes the choices that keep people in what isn't really the best fit for their business anymore. So I just vomited a lot on that.
No,
but that's my core history on where I came from and how I became this kind of brokerage specialist. And specifically at EXP, I got hired and I came on to help brokerages and teams look at their financial decision and give them that specific opportunity of success and what that looks like for them financially. Because it's one thing for an individual agent or even a team, right, to go, oh, I understand, 80-20 split, 16K cap, blah, 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 and go, okay, I'm just going to move my business, right? Flip the switch, make a decision, whatever. For brokerage, that's a much bigger path, right? That's a much bigger switch. That's a longer conversation. And we should be treating it like an M&A conversation. And so that's really what I did is I would look at the financial aspects and go, here's what your current model means to you, which a lot of them don't even know what their current model means to them. There's some brokerages that don't have P&Ls, or they don't know, truly what their model looks like and how that affects them and what they're going to do in a 3-year, 5-year, 10-year plan, and then here's what that opportunity looks like at EXP. And what is that true financial difference? And because that delta is what really made the decision a lot easier. Because when you can see the path and you can see the delta, now you're making an informed business decision, not, hey, just trust us, right? It's fine. RevShare is great. It's going to fix everything. I would never make a business decision that way, right? So I still do that. I don't work for corporate anymore, but I'm still doing that for leaders and influencers like yourself, because it's the epitome of third-party validation as well, right? You're not the finance expert. You're not the business expert necessarily. You're in a relationship with them, but that's the hardest part about it. People don't want to talk about money, right? They're embarrassed. They're shameful. They don't have their shit together. So they don't want anybody else to know that they don't have their shit together. I've seen massive teams that make millions and millions of dollars and they don't have a P&L. They don't even know what QuickBooks is. Right. And so it's just like, yeah, don't look over here, right? Behind the curtain, because that's bad over there. And we don't want to talk about that. So being able to bring my skill set in and expertise and go, hey, I don't know all of the ins and outs of your current, structure or what that would look like, but here at EXP, but I know someone who does, and she knows the numbers like the back of her hand, and she can give you that, foundation of really what does this mean to me and my business. And so that's kind of the epitome of that comparison and being able to get in relationship with them, because I am the finance expert that a lot of people don't want to talk about and don't want to, dig into. And so for teams, it's great because it gives the team leader the clarity. It gives all the team members to know, because what would happen, and agents still love to do this with me. Hey, I've got a team. They've got 40 agents. They do 500 million in volume and 750 transactions, or whatever the numbers are, right? And they're like, so what are they going to make, right? What does that mean at EXP? And I'm like, yeah, that's not how I operate, because we all know the 80-20 principle, right? And I would never average anything out, because that's not a fair assessment for the people that are at the very top of the production scale, and it's not fair to the ones at the very bottom of the scale either. So I legitimately make them give me the per agent production, which can take longer for them to, provide, but it's worth it on the back end, because now we have the transparency and the visual around what does this mean to every single team member, but then what does this also mean to the team leader, and how does it affect the team leader's business positively, negatively? And so that's, the beauty. Same thing with the brokerages. Most brokerages assume, why would I ever, give up anything and go to another brokerage, right? And they just assume that if I'm not the broker of record, then I no longer can make any of the revenue, right? The company dollar, the split, whatever. They just assume that all goes away. And RevShare would never replace that day one, unless it was like a super low split or a flat transaction fee brokerage, like RevShare could replace. And I've seen that, right? Where you could make more on RevShare day one than what you're making on the flat fees or something like that. It all just depends on that production. And so being able to say to them, hey, we're going to create what we call a teamridge, what I refer to as a teamridge, right? Where you're going to come into EXP as a team, because even if you're going to shut down the brick and mortar, right? You don't have to, which is another assumption that brokerages make, is that they have to shut down their brick and mortar. They don't, not whatsoever. That's a choice. So even if they're going to, they still are going to provide value for the core group of agents that they already have. So we figure out what is the way, what's the hybrid for them to continue to get something, because they're still going to provide value, whether that's coaching, mentorship, technology, leads, whatever it is that their model exists around now. They're still going to provide most of that, but how does that work within the EXP model for them to still get something as far as the agent's transactions, and not just the rev share after the fact, right? So I figure out and I look at what makes sense and what's a win for that brokerage and for the agent still and for EXP. And I give them that roadmap of, hey, you guys, because of your production, you're rock stars, you should do the self-organized team. Or, hey, because you don't have a bunch of high producers, then it looks like the standard team and half caps or the mega icons, So that's another reason why I have to have that per agent production, is because I need the clarity to say what is going to be the best, way to set you up for success, and not just assuming, because just because someone qualifies for a certain type of team doesn't mean that's the best option for them. Right? We're just going, oh, just trust us and you should be a mega icon team. No, you shouldn't sometimes. And it really comes down to what that per agent production, looks like. So that's kind of the process of what I do with the brokerages and the teams. Do you guys want to see what that conversation looks like? I don't know where you want to go with this. So.
That was like, wow, look at unload that one. That was a truckload of semi.
Yeah, there's a lot there.
First, I want to unpackage this bad boy.
Yeah.
We went from first base to home plate, went home and
sorry, that's just how my brain works.
No, Ashley, it's great. It's great. I received all of it. Just literally every word you said, I received. So yeah, it was well packaged, well delivered. Yeah.
And what I really want to kind of do is maybe break this down into segments. So first, where everybody kind of crawls for the walk. And I mean, most people out there, let's kind of just start about the birth of what this statement would look like from a perspective of an agent, an actual solo individual agent who goes out there and gets into real estate, starts crushing it, does well, becomes a rainmaker, ultimately gets to a point where he can't humanly possibly handle any more amounts of business on his own. So he starts to think about bringing on people. So he starts to leverage that, right? Whatever that looks like, and there's different ways of Sundays to do that. Everybody has their opinion, whether it's an admin first, an ISA, a buyer's agent, listed place, whatever. And there's, ways it works around everything. But the next move, obviously, I love what you said, though. The reality is most realtors, even top producers, have zero idea of what they're doing on the business side. Yes, they're transactionally maybe crushing it, but on the other side, they're internally dying or bleeding, and they're working both ends of the stick. They have no idea, and financially get themselves into a place in which they sometimes can't get themselves out of until it's too late, right? Yeah. And so now you're here with this part where there's two sides of a hat that you must wear. And I want people that's listening out there right now to understand that. There's the side of the transactional business that you can go very well at, but there's the other side of it actually running your business. And then traditionally speaking, as you work for these independent brokerages or franchises, we've all done it for careers, whether it's Keller Williams, Coldbank, it doesn't matter. It's all the same in the sense that when you're working for this brokerage, you're ultimately still responsible for yourself, for your finances, for your backup, for everything you need to do. And they're just taking a piece of your pie. And that's fine. We've all established that. They're taking a piece of your pie. You're working yourself to death. And then you have to take care of your own house to make sure it's in order financially, emotionally, mentally, whatever it is. So now we're talking this in where people now have to get this clarity or this ability to be more aware of understanding the financials. We were taught as kids how to balance a checkbook, right? You can't withdraw money.
Somewhere. I think that's a whole other thing, right?
Yeah,
somewhere. But if your parents didn't know, then they didn't teach you, and schools don't teach that. So
I would say generalization, maybe we were taught to. I'm with you guys. I didn't teach it. I had to learn myself. I learned that you had to put in $50 first before I could take out 20. Right? The ATM will say below insufficient funds if you don't have that. So kind of the rule of economics. But I guess you don't know what you don't know. So now at this point, now moving forward, what I really want to segue into is understanding the thought process and the mentality of a person as a top producer and where they're at with their space financially. Move it into what does it look like then? Yes, EXP as a whole. Again, we're the new kid on the block. We've come out here 2016 when we joined EXP. People had no idea who we were. Now it's become a household name. And if you were underneath a rock, you didn't know about EXP, but then they really don't see this, what it is, right? Especially those top producers. I want the ones that are listening, the top producers, the guys running their business at a very high level right now with crazy margins. They're trying to make it work financially, especially moving in the kind of market we're in right now in 2023, where we've seen everything go back and drop. And so everybody, I don't care who you are, you can lie about it, what you said, because they're ashamed. You can lie and try to cover things up, but we all know financially, not everybody's thriving like they did in 2020. It's a reverse engineer piece here. So I want to talk a little about that. And then, segue into, all right, what does it look like for maybe a small team lead brokerage or independent team leader, and maybe independent brokerage, and kind of some ideas of financially what it would look like. And that if we can even do that. That's kind of where I would, absolutely, kind of where I want to segue into. Ross, did you have any thoughts on that?
Oh no. I would love to hear her answer. I was actually just itching my head. I wasn't raising the hand. Yeah, you're good.
I just did the same thing. I don't know. I got it.
The brain is playing here. There's so much number.
Yeah, I'm thinking about it. Yeah, no, you're good.
But I mean, because I feel like a lot of people just, again, listening to this podcast, probably thinking, oh, I got this all figured out. But the reality is, if you showed us your P&Ls, if you even know what a P&L is, like you says, you probably would be upside down and have it. It would look like chicken scratch. And if we're totally honest, you might not even know what you're doing. But I just want to see the advantage of what it is. Yes, we talked about EXP being amazing with revenue share. Yes, we'll talk about that. The stock ownership, that's great about that too. The camaraderie, the collaborative, the community, the culture, the systems, the training, the coaching, the mass robust ecosystem of the cloud we have. Financially though, what does it mean to be here at EXP for somebody who is a top producer or somebody who is a independent or maybe even a small franchise? Mm-hmm. So
so I think now is the time to kind of talk about this because of this market, right? We are seeing, I do the financials for a very large team in Southern California, and they've lost over $500,000 in the last 12 months, right? And only because that team leader is very financially sound and has the reserves and whatever, have they been able to keep the team going. Seen a lot of teams falling apart and just closing up shop because they can't manage all of the things. And I think we get so conditioned to obviously buying leads, talking about the margins, right? Before you even get that net commission check, you've cut, 80% off the top because you had to pay Zillow, you had to pay, this person and that thing and all of the places. And it goes so fast into the ether. And so if you don't have your arms around that, and if you're not strategically looking at, hey, how do I not do a per lead payment or type of transaction to where it's a much higher margin than to get more leads and paying, one total amount for the lead or the bulk amount of leads, right? I pay $1,000 a month for X amount of leads versus I pay 30% off of one transaction for one lead. That's killing a lot of people because they just want to take the easy way and go, oh, Zillow or, whatever. I think that's a really pivotal thing to reevaluate for 2024. What makes sense for your ROI? What makes sense for your lead generation? And what's sustainable in the long run? Because when you really look at the math on that and you talk about what goes off the top to the 25-35% per lead transaction, plus your broker fees, plus your transaction coordinator, plus the team split, plus, it just really takes away and you're down to less than 50% margins most of the time, if not more, right off the bat. And so then the second piece of that, and what I work with a lot with brokerages, is from an operational expense standpoint, what are we doing? And I think this is the biggest mistake most business owners make, or even salespeople or whoever. You do what you know, right? We talked about with the checkbook balancing. We assume that most everybody knows that. A lot of them don't. But no matter what it is, whatever you start with, whatever your knowledge base is in the beginning, and how you do something is typically how you're going to do it for the end of time, right? People don't like change. We are built to, be survival based, and we don't really thrive on change. And so whatever you learn in the first 6 months of the business or year is typically how you're still approaching it now. And what worked then is not going to work now. What worked as a solo agent doesn't work for a small team, which doesn't work for a medium or a large team. And so you have to constantly be evolving and evaluating what is working, what still makes sense, because technology alone is changing the game so rapidly that what you did 6 months ago from a tech standpoint, whether it's your CRM or, bots or whatever it is that still the right thing? Because one shift in the business and now you're losing your butt on that. So I think that's the other part that I see people make mistakes on all the time is what are we doing on the operational, the foundational pieces to make the business run. And just because that's I saw this quote the other day and I can't remember who it's from, but it said the biggest mistake I think it was a Marine or something can make is doing the same thing and not expecting a different result, but that like just guarantees death, right? It's just the fastest way to kill your business, because that is not going to get you to the next level. It's not going to even keep you at the same level. I think a lot of us are struggling right now because of inflation, because of cost of living, because of all of the things, right? It's not just gas is really expensive. It's not just food's really expensive. It's everything is more expensive right now. So for those that have made 100 grand for a long time, guess what? That 100 grand isn't going near as far. So now you've got to get to 150 grand to even just maintain the lifestyle that you're used to, that you had at the 100 grand, right? So I think that's where you have to slow down to speed up. And I think taking the time to go, all right, what is functionally working in the business and versus on the business, right? You can't, and I get it. It's really hard to do that when you have to continue to fly the plane, right? You can't afford to just land it and stop everything. But that's where making those strategic decisions and having the leverage and knowing what your strengths are and what they're not. I think that's the hardest part for salespeople, is that they think they can do everything. And just because you know a little bit doesn't mean that you know a lot. And so and I'm learning this is my journey for the last 12 months, is just because I can do something doesn't mean I should. Right? Mm-hmm. That's not the highest and best use of my time anymore. And even though I can, doesn't mean I want to anymore, because I'm evolving. And so I want to grow and I want to do things different. And so I think from whether it's a team or an individual agent, I think that's the biggest thing or best thing I can recommend going into 2024 is what needs to stay and what needs to go. And not just red light, green light from a number standpoint as far as expenses, but functionally. I was just on a call. I'm partnering with this business who does global co-marketing for listings, which is a whole awesome concept. But they still were doing their forms and documents through, DocuSign or PDFs, emailing, all these things old school way. And a lot of people don't even realize that even a DocuSign document, right? You fill in the PDF and you have all these data fields that people can type in. But at the end of the day, you still get one image, right? One image is the end results of that. And cool, everybody signed and we can all see that. That's awesome. We didn't have to physically print anything out, whatever. But guess what? That data does nothing from that image because it's all one image. And so I one of the things I've built out is the system that separates the data from the documents, right? So I can get a document of an image of all of the information with the data fields filled in, but then I also get the data itself. And now I can have the data API to this or that place or whatever, import into spreadsheets, automatically update over here. So I don't have to rely on a person to manually go do those things. So even knowing and understanding that evolution of how I can work smarter in my business and not having to pay somebody for data entry all the time, and being able to see there's better ways to get the same things done and not just doing the same thing that you've always done. So again, long answer, but
love that. So let me ask you, Ashley, out of curiosity, and by the way, thank you so much for coming on. This has been a value-packed podcast. I mean, I was looking for my pen in the car and I'm trying to jot down my notes as you're speaking. So for those broker owners and those teams, or even the individual agents that are out there, what do you think is a good measure for, looking at your P&L? Is it quarterly, bi-weekly, monthly, or maybe that guy sitting there and he's like, man, I am in the dumps right now. Like, what are the things that you see that are successful that people can implement, today, whether it's, like I said, they go over it monthly, weekly, quarterly, yearly, that really help people get on the right track, because, and I know sometimes, I guess too, it's hard to look at that mirror sometimes and maybe we avoid it because we're like, I'll just get more business. It'll be fine. But yeah, I would love to hear your thought on that.
Yeah, so I think I'm one of those people. I do as I say, not as I do, right? I do people's money and financials all day, every day. For them, it's the last thing I want to do for myself. So don't look at mine because it's not pretty, right? But right. I think you said it, and this is my answer. You have to identify what the problem is. Is it a revenue problem? Is it a technology problem? Is it a people problem? Is it a training problem? And I think if you start by separating out, identifying where the core of the issue is, yes, you can look at the P&L and go, okay, we're not profitable, or you're losing your butt on the money. But where's the breakdown? Because if you don't have a revenue, I have a business I've been consulting with for 6 months right now, and they're real estate adjacent. It's not a brokerage or anything, but they bring in $2 million a month in revenue, but their margins are 85% off the top. And so, and credit card fees alone are killing them because they're not collecting them back from the agents. So from their clients. And so it's costing them $40,000 a month just to process their customers' payments. And so even just one change like that can drastically change their profitability, right? And so for them, that's a very easy, specific, okay, we know what that issue is. And that was easy to identify. But we also have a people issue as far as the amount of time it takes to get something done. And do we have an issue where do we really need this many people to do those same things anymore? So I think that's the first thing you have to identify is it a revenue problem? Is it a functional back-end operational technology, whatever? Is it that? Is it you, right? Is it a management? I can't tell you from a brokerage standpoint specifically, that's where the most of my experience is. But if you want to talk about retention rates, if you actually looked at the staff retention rate for brokerages, it is awful. Because again, you have salespeople who are trying to be managers and they don't know how to manage people and they're awful to their people. And so I think that is one of those things where if you are not a great leader, and understanding the difference between leadership and management, they're not the same. And so if you're not great at one or the other, then fill the gap, find a way, because that can kill the company and the P&L alone, because you're having high turnover with people. You have to retrain those people. You have to get their buy-in. You have to sell the vision. I mean, that cost alone can kill a business if that happens too much. So I think that's identify the core problem is the first thing you have to do.
That's
Which I'm going to lead into this piece too, then, that this whole theory that you always hear, and I know you've heard it, Ashley, and probably you too, Ross, that every time you talk to an independent broker, right, their biggest qualm or their argument of why it's so amazing to just be on their own is because what? I get 100% of my commission. I'm a broker. I'm like, no, you don't. Are you really kidding right now? Do you do regular math or is this like Chinese math? I'm just curious.
It's not Common Core math. That's what that is.
Right.
Plus 1 is 2. It's not 2.5. And the reality is that your 100% you're paying all your own debt right now, which means you're going to cut away from your 100%. So if you look at it in all actuality, I think about even the EXP model. You're paying $16,000, then you're 100%. I know damn well sure most of these independents are spending more than that per month.
Facts.
Business afloat, more than 16 grand, and they're not making 100%, and they have risk and liability and overhead and costs and headaches and babysitting and bullshit. Where do you see the value in that?
Yeah.
Seriously,
so
no brainer.
So 2 things on that. One, my biggest objection handler for that is what legitimately, what are they doing with their time, energy, and effort, right? I challenge them and say, what's your hourly rate? Because my gut knows that 90% of independent brokerages would not be able to keep the doors open without the broker owners or the managers' production themselves. 100%. They are keeping that functional, right? They're the ones keeping their doors open from their own production. They can't afford to get out of production because they're the ones doing all of the actual producing and therefore the income and the revenue. So I always go to that first is like, but what is it really costing you? If you weren't producing, could you afford this, right? Because that's a huge aha for them a lot of the times. Like they don't like to acknowledge that or realize that. And then secondly is that is almost the intangible that getting a brokerage to see is that time, energy, and effort. I always talk about this, or the analogy that I use is, do you remember the old MasterCard commercials where it was like $50 for flowers, $200 for a night out, but the time and the memories together are priceless, right? And they had all these different examples or versions of that. And that's really what I think running a brokerage comes down to. When people used to ask me what I did for a living, I told them I ran an adult daycare because is, and you said it earlier, Chris, right? You have all these agents trying to run their businesses, and they need to treat it like a business, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the problem that creates on the flip side from the brokerage standpoint is you have 300 agents who all think that the world revolves around them, and they're the only ones because it's their business, right? We've conditioned, we've trained them, we've taught them, it's your business, know your numbers, all the things. But then they're trying to manage 300 of those. And that is really, really difficult. And it is exhausting and hard. Yeah. And so I go, what is the intangible of, yes, paying in $16,000 on your own production and all of the things, but you are no longer the broker of record. And yes, immediately overnight, no, you're still going to get questions. They're still going to come to you because you're the relationship. But in general, eventually, you get all of that back from a compliance standpoint, from a negotiation standpoint, right? You are not the only one that they come to anymore. You get to share in that. And so how much time do you get back from that? And then, hey, I don't have to show up and teach all the classes. I don't have to show up and know all the tech stuff anymore and be the only one who can answer all of the CRM questions or the lead gen things or whatever, you know? And so a lot of it comes down to that intangible, that priceless thing that they are so tired of doing and being the only one to continue to do, and being able to plug into a platform like EXP where there is no endless number of training classes, right? There is no endless number of support and ways for the broker, the compliance team to support and answer the questions. And there's just so much collaboration. So I've seen multiple brokerages. It never was about the money. It never was about what the actual net difference was in the revenue or the income standpoint. It was, what am I getting back in my life? What's that intangible priceless thing? So
I love that. And I want to talk about that a little bit more too, Ashley, because what I hear a lot that you're saying too is kind of like you awaken people out of their sleep, right?
Yeah.
And we all have to go through that. Like you said, agents always, it's my business, it's my business, it's my business. But every step of the way, we kind of have to leverage our business, right? We go from the independent agent to, hey, I just need to do listings. Now I need a buyer's agent, or like Chris, whatever you said, whether you go with the VA route or whatever, you have to leverage to scale and have those awakenings and really let go. And I think what's so cool about what you're saying is here at EXP, you know, we have agents that are doing 5, 10, 20, 100 plus million. And, you know, if you're just that mom and pop brokerage, or maybe you have a big brokerage, but you're trying to get to that next level, you need to be plugged in with the people that are already at that level, right? You're only going to get so far of what you know. And so that's so great that we have here. I think the other thing that I love, what I hear you say is, okay, I'm an agent at EXP. And yeah, I run, I'm a self-organized team here. But if I had somebody, which, I talk to people every day, Chris, we talk about, hey, we're talking to teams, we're talking to brokerages. I would not know. I mean, hey, no offense to myself, but I just would not know how to navigate a 100-person brokerage and the pain points they have because I've never been in that situation. And the fact that we have, people such as yourself, Ashley, that you're a pro at that. That's your wheelhouse. You know how to handle that conversation, guide, lead, and actually navigate that person to the understanding to have the awakening. I think that adds so much value for every agent within EXP, and so, yeah, I think that's great. Now, how would someone go about that? Say you're an agent here, or maybe you're not an agent at EXP and you're listening right now and you're going, I've never even thought to do a P&L. Does EXP make sense to me? What would that process look like to get into connection with you?
Yeah. So
real quick, if we mind,
go ahead.
Let's share something if we could real quick.
Oh.
Is there possibly you have like an example you can share that we can jump into that like how that looks like the process of getting in touch with you? Sorry, Ross. Just want to
no, great.
To share something, some meat and potatoes, kind of like to real numbers of like, here we go. Here's an example. Maybe just share one. Like here's one example. What it would look like, and hit present, and you can share your screen and maybe share some of that stuff with us. And then we can kind of like maybe go from there. And then absolutely love to end it with kind of like, here we go. This is how you get in touch with Ash. This is how this looks. This is how you get it started.
Awesome. All right. I'm just trying to pull out my tabs so you guys don't see my crazy with all of my tabs.
Hey, crazy is where it's at, girl. It's crazy.
Right?
Okay. This is going to give you a way to people to articulate, maybe look at it from a visual perspective of, hey, all right, this is kind of my numbers. Maybe I'm a person watching this podcast, and these are my numbers, right? Mm-hmm. And let me add to the stage here. Boom. There we go.
Okay. So remember I said it all starts with that whole process of getting their per agent production. Right. So I start with a custom template of what, and I deleted the names, right, for, forgot one, for privacy purposes. But I start with what is their current GCI for each agent? What are the units? What are the volume? What is their current model, right? And what are the broker splits? What are the team splits? So this was a brokerage comparison that I did. And so that way I can firm up and go, here's what that currently means to every agent in your business, right? And so, hold on, let me just double check. I still got some names there. And so if I can't tell you what the net difference is, and I can't tell you where to go unless I know where you're coming from. Right? Like you kind of have to know your roots in order to know where you want to go or who you are, kind of deal, right? So I always start with what is the current model and what does that come down to financially for everyone? So that tells me, hey, here's what does make the most sense. Because now I see, what did I say earlier? The broker is carrying the majority of the production there. They really only have one or two other people that do a decent amount of production, and then they've got two teams with really only one team with a decent amount of production at 40 units, right? But that one person is carrying the weight of the majority of the production. So now I understand and see what that breakdown is of the agent mix, right? How many half cappers, quarter cappers, or major producers, that kind of deal. So I always start with, okay, what is your current model? So everything in the gray is, at the end of the day, this is what your agents will net based on their, existing splits and caps and fees and all of that. And so the meat and potatoes, right? This is the meat and potatoes of, I don't care where they're coming from. It could be flat transaction. It could be a franchise. It could be independent, whatever. I need to understand the meat and potatoes of the business from a financial standpoint. Company dollar, cap, are they royalty? What are those fees? Because that is the majority of what most brokerages have from a value proposition is what's the split, what's the cap, what's my monthly office fee, and what's my transaction fees, right? That's pretty much the full scope of the financial conversation. So once I get all of that, of what their current model is, then I look at it and go, okay, here's what that looks like at EXP. So I take that same amount of production and I go, all right, if this is a mega icon team and that makes the most sense, then instead of the broker getting 30% on most of the agents with a perpetual split, this is not a cap model. That's a whole other, you're talking about Common Core. Most agents don't understand the difference between a cap and a perpetual split if they've always worked at a brokerage with a perpetual split. So they go, oh, well, I want my 95.5 because they can't do the math on what a cap model is. So now I know that on the Mega Icon team at EXP, which is a $4,000 cap to EXP, 80-20 split, I can put them on this teamerage, and the broker owner, the current broker owner, who will now be the team leader at EXP, can still get 10 or 20%, and those agents still pay EXP. And no, they may not net gain on just the company dollar transactional split. And so that's a lot of why I like to do this, again, from a visual standpoint. I go through all of the transactional fees, what that looks like. I also have I don't have it on this one, but I have a per transaction calculation too, because again, perpetual versus cap models, people don't understand pre-cap, post-cap, all that stuff. So I can show that as well. But really, this is the aha moment for everyone.
This is amazing, by the way. This is absolutely amazing.
Just like Mike Tyson punch you in the face and
yeah.
If you don't see, then you're blind, dumb, and
right. That's okay. So let's just call this the owner, okay? So the owner has their own personal production, right? But then you have the brokerage income. And so the personal production this is what they're making as an agent within their brokerage. But then this is what the brokerage is making. So really just all the revenue from the splits of the 30% that they're getting. So when I compare what the agent is going to make on just their own production, they're going to net gain, right? If you just look at their production, and even though they're not paying anything, right? Like you said, 100%, I get to keep 100% of my commission. They still are going to net more because of what they've already built with all these other additional agents, with the stock awards, with the rev share. Day one, they as an individual agent are going to gain more. Okay. But the brokerage itself, because I dropped the revenue from the 30 or 20% split to the team leader now getting 20 or 10%, right? I know I'm gonna see a revenue loss of $76,000 off the top. They're making $230 at EXP on the teamerage, they'd be making $150K. Okay. So now I know what the gross revenue net difference is. The next piece that I do in the exercise, and I don't have this for this one, but it would be to look at the operating expenses on that P&L. What can we get rid of? Are you going to keep your brick and mortar? If you are, great. Can we leverage that out through any lenders or title and get other rent resources to help cover that? If we're going to be able to eliminate staff, because you don't need a broker of record anymore, but maybe you need a transaction manager now who helps facilitate between your agents and the broker at EXP. Or the technology, are you paying for websites and IDX and all those things? And you're not going to have to do that anymore. So really looking at line by line on the P&L, because even if my gross revenue goes down, I still have an opportunity to remove expenses. And then that keeps me closer to whole. And I've even seen some that are net gain just by eliminating some of the operating expenses on their P&L because they're not the broker of record anymore. So that's the first thing I do is really hone in on and nail into their head that this is only the gross revenue difference, not their net profit difference, right? And so for the agents, I also like to go, okay, cool, dollar for dollar, apples to apples. If we were to do this team split and this model at EXP, the agents are going to lose some money, right? Okay, we're not talking about life and death. The highest is like $5,000, $6,000, but most of them are less than $1,000, $1,000 to $2,000. Now, here's where it goes from being a meat and potatoes conversation to a 7-course meal. Because even if they're going to lose on the transactional side, if they want to participate in attraction, and even if they only do that on a small scale, 3 agents average $1,800 a year, guess what? Now they're in the net gain, right? Or if they want to tap into healthcare, now that we know the average agent saves $800 a month on their premiums, even if they only save $200 a month, and they do the $2,400 a year and the 3 people in their organization, they recruit 3 people, now they're in the net positive, right? Now we go from almost everybody losing a little bit of money to almost everybody gaining, right? And now we've gotten the gross revenue loss for the broker owner down to $50K. And again, I still haven't done the operation expenses to remove from that. So that's kind of the whole, process of they have to give me a little bit of data, and then I'm able to give them that clear roadmap of what those net differences truly look like day one and how that affects them and their team.
Ashley's like the Dave Ramsey version of EXP Realty for mortgage, for people in the, not mortgage, but people in the real estate game, right? You are the Dave Ramsey of realtors.
Except I don't agree with saving your way to wealth. I'm going to throw that out there.
Ramsey theory is busted, but
just the analogy, you know what I mean? I mean, this is very, very like down to the brass tacks. I mean, everything is here. Yeah.
But if you think about every little sector and every little like compartmental that she's actually went over, there's a lot of that stuff that I promise you most independents or team leaders are not even looking at on their finance part. And again, if you're a CEO on the board of directors of a Fortune 500 company, your job, or COO, and your job was to find out how to trim all the fat, how to increase profits, how to drop your margins, that's the kind of stuff you'd be going through. That's the kind of shit you'd be looking at on a regular. Where can I cut from here to take from there? Where can I move from this to that? Every dollar counts in the business. And this is where, again, I don't think most realtors think about that because we were not educated on that point. I mean, for God's sake, when you join a brokerage, what's the first thing you say? Go after your people, right? Find the lowest hanging fruit. Go talk to people who know, like, when I want to sell real estate. It's not about how to understand your books, your finances. That's not a conversation ever.
I think it's the greatest detriment to agents, right? They started a real estate school who's only worried about them getting their $1,000 for their classes and doesn't even tell them, oh, by the way, you're going to need at least another 1,000, if not double or triple that, to join the board, pay your MLS dues, get key boxes, get signs, pay the sign-up fees for the brokerage. And then they go, oh, I don't have any of that. God forbid that they actually have 6 months of savings to live off of until they have their first transaction. It is the most disrespectful, awful thing that I think happens to agents in the industry from day one. It's awful.
So true. Yeah.
Set yourself up for failure. I mean, the reality is we set them up already against the wind, right? We already get them against the grain, and it's challenging from itself just to figure out how to go get leads as a realtor. How do I get a deal? If I just can't close a deal, which again, why we see why most realtors within a nice first 90 to 120 days quit the business, go back to their job. Right? Because they did get that reality slap in my face. I had to put an additional $1,500, $2,000, invest in some signs and all this stuff and these little ancillary pieces that nickel and dime me to death I didn't know were there. then I'm already spent out more money than I haven't got $1 back in return, which in all intents and purposes, that's business 101 fallout. I mean, that's detrimental. That's how you kick the legs out from underneath you. When you're spending money out and you're not leading the way.
They don't even teach them how to go get leads in school, right? They don't get taught how to do the business part. It's just like doctors, right? Doctors go to school, attorneys go to school. Cool, you're licensed, you have all of the knowledge, and yet you don't know how to run a practice. You don't know how to hire people or train people, or you know nothing. And this is no different. And yet we are guiding people on the largest asset purchase they will probably ever make in their lifetime. And we are so underqualified because all the classes and the schools teach are contracts. And yes, I understand that, but that is a fraction of what you're responsible for.
Sure. And, you know, when I look at that, you know, net sheet that you have, that like P&L that you're breaking down, I even think too, to myself, like, okay, well, if those agents on that specific team that we were just evaluating were to plug into our ecosystem and the structures that we have, I'm solely convinced that they are going to get 5, 10, 20 more units under contract because they have the coaching and training, because our coaching and training comes from real agents that are out in the business doing the day-to-day job, not somebody that's out there who already did it 20 years ago, but today. And so, you know, I think that's a huge value add too for any independent brokers out there.
Yeah, because what I'm showing them is literally just if they do the exact amount of production that they're doing right now. If it just stays exactly the same. But we know that we've seen agents double, triple, quadruple their business because of all of the EXP tools. And I think that's the ultimate thing too, from a brokerage standpoint, even from teams in another brokerage. You don't have the leverage, you don't have the buying power, you don't have the access to provide all of the solutions that EXP brings to the table. And even if you do provide some of them, they're costing you 10 times more than what it costs EXP because EXP has the buying power, right? That's the core of the healthcare opportunity, is because we're all shareholders. So we get to get and buy insurance as a collective pool, as opposed to even the independent broker who has 10 or 50 people. They still don't have the numbers or the buying power, right?
And even with oh, go ahead, keep going.
Well, I was just saying, most other brokerages that say they have insurance, right? They have a discount in the marketplace. That's not what our healthcare is. It's far more. It's just not even comparable.
For sure. And I think another thing too is the retention here at EXP, right? Like, yes, that might be your P&L today, but agents historically, right, they are not going to stay on teams forever, you know, and they're going to want to navigate and go in different directions. So, you know, theoretically, if you're independent or you're not a part of this amazing model that we have, well, that's just business walking out your door. And, you know, your margin's only going to keep going lower. Whereas here, you can really build something to last for any person at any stage of the game that they're in, you know?
You just said my favorite word, Ross.
What's that?
What was it? Guess. What'd you say? Retention. Listen, what did I say? Brokerages are in the customer service business. This is my most current soapbox, right? Is brokerages, teams, recruiters, they spend all of their time, energy, and effort on more recruit, right? More bodies, more transaction, whatever. Instead, and it's the biggest point of failure in real estate from a production standpoint as well, is that we are horrible at repeat business. Most of us fail miserably at repeat business. And yet a universal truth, I don't care what industry it is, it costs far more to acquire a new customer than it does to increase revenue from an existing customer.
Come on.
And yet there are so many brokerages that have no retention system. There are so many teams that have no retention system. It's hard EXP, right? You have to operate as the brokerage within a brokerage, and you have to treat the organization, the recruiting, the attraction as a brokerage. Because if you don't have a way to recognize and retain those agents, you're spinning your wheels, you're wasting your money, because you could double, triple the amount of production or rev share if you just focused on the people that were already there and getting them into production, as opposed to, I got to get 5 more people. I got to get, 50 more people, or that is not necessarily the only way to do it. And so it just baffles me that, again, from a business standpoint, most other industries, most other business people know that if I focus on my existing customer base, then I'm going to be able to get more, and my margins are better and all of that. So,
amen.
It works. And
can we get another hour on just retention? Because I could do
it. Well, that piece I want to really throw in there now too is to really exemplify EXP a little bit on this piece that again doesn't exist in other brokerages is I liked in your spreadsheet there, you broke it down different things that you could find ways to cut back and add in and to make your revenues and your net losses and your net gains to variations again, which is what you should be doing in your business plan, period, financially. Is finding the best ways to cut back and to add and to create different creativeness, I guess, to get yourself financially in a net place. I want to throw in the factor that you obviously threw in there, the attraction piece, the revenue share piece, right? Because again, there's no other brokerages, except we can talk about the copycats out there right now that are trying to duplicate us, but they never will. But okay, sorry. But my point is,
don't be sorry, Chris. This is real talk.
No, we're the ones that actually offer this opportunity, right? And here's a piece. You looked at that net sheet or that sheet you had, that Excel, and you put in a piece of attraction that could really create and compensate to turn the charts and turn the tables over to really help you increase your revenue and to create your net. Agents out there, again, understand this, that from a team leader or ownership for a brokerage that you're working at, I'm just talking about the realtor out there, the average realtor out there who's working for a brokerage, what keeps them alive too, and I'm going to kind of counteract what you said a little bit. I think retention is amazing. It needs to happen 100%. Take care of your fold, because if you take care of your fold, you will grow much longer and you'll have more loyalty there and more longevity there and sustainability. However, there is a piece that as brokerages, we have to continue to recruit, because recruiting does fix a lot of other problems that it doesn't work, right? So it's a kind of a skill of both sides we need.
You need both. It isn't one or the other. I agree.
100%.
Yeah, for sure.
And as a realtor who's looking at this saying, you know what? Okay, Ashley, I look at that chart, but that attraction piece, we can cut that out, because I'm absolutely not going to do that. That's not part of my business. It needs to be part of your business, because everybody wake up. If you're a salesperson, I'm sorry, you're a recruiter. Whether you want to be stigmatized with that title or not, whatever, I don't care. It is, you are a recruiter through and through. You have to go find your buyers and sellers every day. And that's called recruiting, attracting, finding, pulling back curtains, lifting up rocks, whatever it takes. You're going to go after these people. They don't fall on your lap. They don't come knock on your door. And hopefully at one point, for God's sake, they will start calling your phone. If you do your job correctly, at some point in your career, your phone will start ringing. Yes, if you do it right. But the reality is, to get there, you're still going to have to go after them 1,000%, which means you're in a space in which requires your time, energy, and effort to go recruit new talent of buyers and sellers every day. So to burst your bubble, you're a recruiter. The difference is you're recruiting for the short game versus the long game. And if you're looking at your whole entire business model, you need to find ways to get creative with it, which means, yes, you have a buyer model, you have a listing model, you have a business model, and you should have an agent attraction model to your model. And EXP has figured out a way to monetize that. And that's what separates us from everybody else on this planet right now. And nobody else can touch us with a 12-foot stick. Period. That's it.
Yeah. I mean, that's what we talked about last time in the team meeting, right, Chris? Was I shared that visual around how many people get paid on a transaction, right? Yep. And we are giving away so much as agents. And that applies to the brokerage piece as well. Right? We are giving away so much of the revenue or the money on each transaction. And you are an influencer. And I don't watch reality TV. I'm not a celebrity obsessive kind of person. However, with social media and the platforms that we have, we are all influencers, and we are giving away our brand for free by not monetizing every single piece. That's the other thing that you have to do in this day and age, is look at, if I'm only going to get paid on the transaction, I'm probably not going to last very long. You're probably not going to make it another 3 to 5 years in this industry, especially after what you were talking about before we jumped on, right? Of the lawsuits and the changes that are coming to the industry, right? So you have to get creative and do a joint venture with a title, or get buy-in with the lenders. And they don't want to do MSAs, but they'll do training. I promise you, they'll pay for events. Okay. So same thing with your real estate business of, you have to attract buyers and sellers. Agents follow agents, right? So stop giving it away for free, because it's not going to get you anywhere in the long run. It's not going to get you out of the transactional wheelhouse, right? Of the hamster wheel. And so you've got to tap into every single revenue stream you can, and rev share being that biggest, massive opportunity. And I go back to this all the time. Yeah, there's copycats. There's always going to be copycats. In fact, I saw the funniest title the other day. I have to say this. Have you guys seen that Netflix is going to open brick and mortar locations?
Yes.
No way.
I swear to God.
No way.
It broke my brain for a second. Just when I read the title, I was like, Right?
Backwards.
Make it make sense. But it makes sense in that they're creating experiences around their content, right? And they're going to do dining experiences and special things that you don't get on the show or whatever. So that makes sense. I was like, oh, okay, I get the point of that. And so I think that's where we have to go that next step and level of what are we creating from an experience standpoint, from a life standpoint of we are far and beyond the meat and potatoes of caps, splits, transaction fees. There's so many other ways to build revenue and to create a life that we really want and not just focused on transactions.
Oh, what way to end this, right? What way to end that right there? Ashley, that was amazing. This was freaking literally a 7-course meal. Not even lying.
Thank you.
Dessert beginning, dessert end, dessert in the middle, meat, potatoes, all over. I just.
And we were literally saying before we jumped on, Chris and I were like, man, we don't want just the appetizer, man. We want the whole meal. And we literally were just saying that. Yeah.
Really kind of, and if you're listening to this for the podcast, we appreciate you guys always the audience, but this really lays it all out. And I'm glad we did it in a video format because you can look at some of this stuff, these charts, and kind of see some of the stuff that numbers don't lie. This is the truth. 1 + 1 is 2. But you're right. We're in a space right now with whatever's coming down the pipe, regardless if it's inflation rates, doesn't matter. NAR issues, lawsuits, doesn't matter. You got to figure out how to get your shit right, meaning that you got to get creative and you got to figure out how to be a better, savvy freaking business owner.
Yep.
That is the key. Your real estate is your vehicle. That is the business that's driving your business. But you better get better at it. Otherwise, you will not be in business long. You will be Blockbuster. It is through everything. And good for Netflix, because guess what? Netflix is going back and kind of throw it in their face because the reality is Blockbuster sold their whole idea based off of experience. Come on Friday night, get the candy, hang out with the family, go get the movies. It was an experience they thought was going to ride the storm, and it didn't. Now Netflix is taking it back. They crumpled them, and they're going back and saying, guess what? Yeah, we're going to sell the experience now. So screw you. Yep. I love it. Get creative with your business, man. Ashley, an amazing. We're at the top of the hour. I appreciate you. Love you so much for your knowledge. And if anyone wants to get in touch with Ashley GOLLADAY, where could they reach out to you, Ashley? You got an Instagram or what do you want to do?
I'm on Instagram at agolladay921. The best way to get me is to text me. I literally stopped looking at emails, 2 years ago. So please don't email me. I'm not even going to tell you my email address. Text me at 214-883-6453. Call me. I will answer the phone too. But I love helping with brokerages, teams. Let me help you fix the problems and look at what makes sense in the future too.
Awesome. I love it. And I'll put your phone number, by the way, when we post this out, if you don't mind, I'll put your phone number out there too in the credits so you'll have it. As always, we love sharing all this information with you guys. We hope it was valuable to you. Again, if you're new to the show, we hope this was value to you. For those who have come here regularly and listen to us, we appreciate and love you very much. And we continue to watch our charts grow. So we were at 1. Now we're at 42. I can't wait till we get to 100.
Come
We're
on.
going to continue on this journey.
I'm going to fly out to Hawaii, Chris. We're going to do the episode live on the beach.
Hawaii. It makes it happen. We got Bill coming out here in May, so it absolutely needs to happen. Awesome. All right. Well, love you guys. Appreciate you, Ross, as well. Ashley, thank you very much. And until next week, have an amazing week. Go out and crush it.